The greenhouse door burst inward, and Sharon Decker's voice sliced through the humid air.
Everyone stay back. We have evidence of illegal drug manufacturing.
Within minutes, a sheriff's cruiser crunched to a stop outside, Deputy Donahue stepping into the morning sun.
Mrs. Decker, you reported a major drug operation. Show me what you've got.
Paul Reeves set down his trimmers and walked toward the commotion, his expression unreadable.
Deputy, I am Paul Reeves. This is a state-licensed cannabis cultivation facility. Here is my license.
He revealed a second card, his state alcoholic beverage control director badge. Sharon's phone dipped as her jaw went slack.
Everything checks out. This operation's fully licensed. I suggest you all leave.
But he's growing marijuana in our community. There must be some violation.
Sharon's phone was already uploading. The video would go viral within the hour, and the HOA had just handed their liquor permits to a man with nothing left to lose. 6 hours earlier, Paul Reeves was alone in his greenhouse, the hum of grow lights his only company.
Clean crop this season. Grandpa would have appreciated the legal paperwork.
2 hours later, he sat at the state ABC office overseeing liquor licensing across the state.
Another liquor license renewal. Same violations, different business names.
Across town, Sharon Decker was scanning community complaints when a report flagged an odor of marijuana from Paul's property.
That's the Reeves place. He keeps to himself, but this smell is a public nuisance.
She pulled county records. No HOA violation filed yet, but she was already dialing the board.
He's been hiding right under our noses. I'll organize a citizen patrol.
Within the hour, she'd assembled 3 board members for an emergency meeting outside the clubhouse.
This is a clear violation of our community standards. We're going in at noon.
The video hit the neighborhood group like a match in a gas leak. 43 shares in 15 minutes. Drug den at 8382 Old Mill Road. This man is selling pot to our children.
She posted my address. This isn't a dispute anymore. It's a public target.
On his laptop, the comments were worse. A stranger called his office to demand his badge, report him to the state liquor board. A public official shouldn't be near drugs.
If I defend myself, the agency looks compromised. If I stay silent, my farm and career burn.
His phone buzzed again, a blocked number, then a text. Shut down your grow or we shut it for you. Your granddaughter's school is Maplewood Elementary.
That's it. I am not letting them drag my family into this.
He opened his laptop again, but not to respond. He pulled up the state liquor licensing database. The Ridgeline Community Clubhouse permit glowed on the screen, his own name listed as the licensing authority.
Any action I take now looks like retaliation. Recusal is the only clean move.
He stepped outside and called Keith Morris, his most meticulous field inspector, to hand off the case.
Understood. Paul, I'll initiate a standard compliance audit immediately.
Don't give any special treatment because of me. Just follow the book.
Always do. I'll pull their records by end of day.
The recusal form was filed electronically within the hour, removing Paul's name from the oversight chain.
Sharon has no idea what she's triggered, but neither do I.
The audit request landed on the HOA's clubhouse manager's desk through standard channels. The fuse was lit, and Sharon was too busy posting updates to smell the smoke. Sharon filed a false code enforcement complaint, claiming Paul was dumping chemical waste near the property line.
If I bury him in fines, he'll shut down that drug operation for good.
By noon, a dozen protesters had gathered outside the farm gate, holding signs they'd printed from Sharon's online post. Deputy Donahue returned, this time to keep the peace, not to investigate Paul. Paul stepped out and held up his state cannabis license. The protesters' chants died mid-sentence. 20 miles away, Keith Morris signed in at the HOA clubhouse, a routine audit notice in hand. He opened the first ledger, a quick look at the gift shop's wine sales over the past quarter.
Gift shop. Sales are rarely reported correctly, but I need to dig deeper.
Upstairs, the HOA board was drafting a demand to the state ABC director, unaware he was the very man they had just raided. Keith's pen hovered over the Friday night wine club receipt. No public pour registration had ever been filed. Keith interviewed the club manager, who admitted the wine club operated every Friday for 2 years without a license. By end of day, he had documented 11 separate violations, most centered on unreported revenue. The HOA's treasurer covered her mouth when she saw the report, but Keith pressed forward. One violation alone, selling wine by the glass without a permit, carried a mandatory suspension recommendation. He called Paul at the ABC office, his voice tight.
11 violations, Paul. The gift shop sold wine for 2 years without reporting a single bottle.
I can't discuss the case. Keith, you know I am recused.
I wasn't asking for guidance, just letting you know the scope. I am recommending suspension pending a full hearing.
Paul hung up and stared at the wall, his own compliance record spotless, but his hands tied by ethics. The violation list sat on the HOA president's desk, but Sharon was still posting, completely unaware. The suspension notice arrived by certified mail, a heavy envelope with the ABC seal.
They can't do this. We're a private club. This is pure harassment.
Within the hour, the HOA board called an emergency meeting, accusations ricocheting off the walls.
This is Paul Reeves retaliating. He's using his position to destroy us.
From her phone, she broadcast a new version of events, tagging every local news outlet. State ABC Director Paul Reeves is illegally shutting down our clubhouse. This is pure retaliation for exposing his drug farm. Local news picked up the story, a camera crew arriving at the clubhouse before noon. Paul's office issued a terse statement, but he chose to speak through the facts.
I recused myself weeks ago. The audit is standard procedure, and the violations are documented.
The HOA had 72 hours to comply, and their Friday night wine club was now officially illegal. The escalation Sharon didn't see coming was the photo of Paul's granddaughter at her bus stop. Within hours, a digital evidence analyst flagged the post under the cannabis industry retaliation statute. Special Agent Linda Park opened the file, her badge heavy on her jacket, and started reading.
This isn't a local dispute anymore. It's a federal civil rights case.
She reviewed the timeline, over 40 posts in 72 hours, each more personal than the last.
Subpoena the social media records. I want every post mapped to the HOA board.
The inquiry attached to Sharon Decker's name personally. No one else at the HOA was touching this. Meanwhile, Sharon was at the clubhouse, laughing off the suspension as a bureaucratic glitch.
They'll fold. They always do when we threaten a lawsuit.
She had no idea a federal agent was already interviewing the clubhouse manager. By Monday morning, the clubhouse doors were chained shut. 3 weddings had been booked that month, all canceled. A bride in a white dress confronted the HOA desk, tears tracking down her cheeks.
This is not the board's fault. Paul Reeves weaponized his office to ruin us.
But inside the boardroom, the treasurer slid a resignation draft across the table. No one spoke, but Sharon's eyes swept the room and found no allies. 20 miles away, Paul's attorney set a single piece of paper on the desk.
Say nothing. Every word I speak becomes ammunition for their narrative.
The canceled weddings meant refund checks that would bounce, and the HOA's insurance didn't cover permit violations.
They'll forget the weddings when they see I am the only one fighting for this community.
The HOA was fracturing from within, but the real reckoning was still gathering force outside the walls. Federal agents served Sharon with a subpoena for her social media records. The first public sign the investigation was real. Sharon's attorney flipped the subpoena over and back, then reached for his phone.
This is a fishing expedition. I'll sue the agency for harassment.
Digital forensics had already recovered emails and deleted posts that painted a clear picture.
These posts were coordinated, not spontaneous outrage. That makes this a federal case.
By the end of the week, Sharon had hired a criminal defense attorney, canceling all other meetings. The news broke nationally. HOA president faces civil rights charges over cannabis farm raid. Agent Park's team mapped 42 posts to Sharon's IP address and her direct orders to the board. Paul received an encrypted email from the DOJ, a target letter, but not for him. Sharon's name was at the top of the indictment referral. And for the first time, she stopped posting. 3 vendor lawsuits arrived in the same afternoon, each citing the liquor license suspension as the cause. A single florist claimed $185,000 in wedding losses, and the caterer demanded $230,000 for unpaid events.
This is all Paul's doing. He's bankrupting us to cover his own crimes.
But the board's vote was already scheduled. Bankruptcy was the only option left. The motion passed, 6-1. Sharon cast the lone no vote, her face a mask of rage. Meanwhile, federal agents traced a payment from Sharon's personal account to a digital troll farm.
She paid for those posts. That's not opinion, it's conspiracy to harass.
The DOJ froze her personal assets. $420,000 in liquid accounts, frozen with a single stroke. The HOA's bankruptcy trustee seized the clubhouse keys, and Sharon's home was next. The federal report draft concluded Sharon Decker had orchestrated the doxing from the first post. The reversal was complete. Paul testified before the federal grand jury. His license and badge the only evidence he needed.
I recused myself before the audit. My farm is legal, and the violations were real.
The DOJ attorney entered the recusal form and Keith Morris's audit as exhibits.
The victim is Paul Reeves. Every doxing post traces back to Sharon Decker.
The DOJ signaled intent to recommend criminal charges, civil rights violations with a hate crime enhancement. They offered a pretrial settlement, a substantial personal payment, public apology, and lifetime HOA board ban. Paul's farm became a symbol of lawful cultivation, drawing support from across the nation.
I never wanted fame. I just wanted the law to work the way it promises.
Other licensed growers sent equipment, and volunteers arrived to help with the harvest, a silent vote of solidarity. The settlement terms appeared on Agent Park's timeline, and Sharon had 7 days to accept or face a jury. By the second day, the canceled brides picketed the locked clubhouse, wedding photos raised like shields. Sharon Decker stole our weddings. Refund every dollar you owe us. The evening news carried the outrage nationwide. The prosecutor's ultimatum landed on Sharon's attorney's desk. A bride sobbed into her mother's shoulder, her wedding dress still unworn. The HOA had no money left. At a community meeting, the HOA board faced 40 furious families. Sharon refused to attend. Her lawyer unfolded the DOJ settlement terms: $190,000, a public admission of wrongdoing, and a lifetime ban from the board.
$190,000 for posting facts online. This is extortion.
The federal deadline ticked louder. Her frozen accounts made a trial defense nearly impossible. The same bride she'd dismissed now spoke on camera. "I just want my money back so I can marry the man I love." Public sympathy shifted entirely against Sharon. She had 2 days left.
I don't care what they found. I'd rather burn every dime I have than admit to something I didn't do.
But her lawyer's voice dropped flat. "If you lose, you face 18 months in prison. The jury will hear from the brides." That same afternoon, a communication arrived from Paul Reeves' attorney. Paul would not testify at trial if a settlement occurred. He wanted the matter closed, not her destruction.
He's giving me a way out. After everything I did?
The clock hit 48 hours. Outside, the public pressure was a living thing. But inside the conference room, the offer sat like a door.
Fine. But I still think he's a criminal. This is just cheaper.
She nodded once, then folded her arms, and the attorney reached for the phone. The settlement was not yet signed, but the decision had been made. Paul's silence had cost her more than any argument. Sharon's pen scratched across the settlement. $190,000, a lifetime board ban, and a public statement. Within hours, the DOJ announced the settlement. News vans crowded the street, and the brides finally had their answer. At a town hall, families learned the HOA would liquidate. Relief was quiet, not triumphant. The HOA boardroom emptied. The sign outside the clubhouse was changed to closed permanently. Paul watched the announcement on his phone from the greenhouse. He let out a slow, deliberate breath.
She paid for her own destruction. The law worked because I let it.
The bankruptcy trustee boxed up the clubhouse assets. Rows of wine glasses went to auction. Sharon's public apology was 3 sentences long. She never looked at the camera. That evening, neighbors gathered without an HOA for the first time. Someone suggested a community land trust. Paul returned to his fields. The harvest was weeks away, but the farm was already changing. Paul submitted the zoning override application, attaching the federal settlement and audit findings. The state's Department of Agriculture fast-tracked the request, citing the clear pattern of harassment. Within 2 weeks, the approval arrived. His farm was now classified as protected industrial agricultural land. No future HOA could touch him. The override put his cultivation beyond local zoning boards. Construction crews broke ground on 4 new greenhouses, doubling his acreage to 10.
Grandpa would have liked this legal protection built on careful records.
Volunteers from the community helped lay irrigation lines, a quiet thank you for the man who refused to sue the families. The first new greenhouse frame went up on a Tuesday, and Paul hammered the first nail himself. By harvest season, the farm stretched 10 acres, a checkerboard of green and silver foil. The override drew attention. Other growers called for similar protections, and Paul's name became synonymous with legal resilience. Paul stood at the edge of his new field, calculating the first harvest's value, and reached for his phone.
This farm didn't break me because the law held. Others deserve that same shield.
He dialed the community legal aid office and asked if they accepted agricultural donations. Within a week, he sat at their conference table, a pledge agreement before him. The Reeves Legal Aid Fund would channel the first harvest's proceeds into fighting HOA overreach.
This is for my grandfather. He never had a lawyer, just a ledger and a stubborn spine.
The director slid the paperwork across, and Paul signed it without hesitation. Word spread quickly, and the first family assisted was a couple facing a predatory board.
I didn't need revenge. I needed this.
The donation was anonymous at first, but the community already knew who had planted the seed. The local news ran a feature contrasting the boarded-up clubhouse with aerial shots of Paul's thriving 10-acre farm. At a town hall, a reporter asked Paul why he hadn't sued everyone.
My grandfather didn't raise me to profit from pain. He left me land and a lesson. The law is a tool, not a weapon.
The State Agriculture Board invited Paul to accept a commendation for advancing legal cultivation at the former clubhouse, now a community center. A brass plaque read, "Reeves Legal Aid Fund, Justice for All, 2024. A family whose HOA threatened foreclosure over a fence received the fund's first grant." The mother wrote a letter that arrived at the farm a week later. "Mr. Reeves, you saved our home. We never thought anyone would stand up to a board. We will pay this forward." Paul folded the letter into his wallet beside his grandfather's photograph, then stepped up to receive the state's honor. National outlets dubbed him the farmer who bankrupted a HOA with a ballpoint pen. But Paul just tended his fields. Sharon Decker's moving van idled in the driveway, the last box of her old life loaded without ceremony. She didn't look back as the van pulled away. The house sat empty before the foreclosure even arrived. The clubhouse transferred to the Community Land Trust for $1. The sign now read Ridgeline Community Center. Paul took the podium at the State Cannabis Summit.
Legal cultivation doesn't invite crime. It invites accountability. Let our record be the standard.
After the speech, a dozen strangers shook his hand. One man's eyes were wet. A man said his brother had quit after a raid. Paul's fight gave him hope. That evening, Paul walked his 10 acres at sunset. The greenhouses glowed like lit lanterns.
Grandpa, your ledger protected this land. It also protected a community.
The farm stood quiet, its impact echoing through many families. Harvest was 2 weeks away, and Paul wasn't looking over his shoulder. The DOJ closure letter arrived on a Tuesday, exonerating Paul and closing the federal file without action.
That chapter is finally closed. Now we can build something bigger than one farm.
A state senator called that afternoon, asking Paul to help draft legislation protecting licensed growers from HOA retaliation.
If my case can help write a law that shields other farmers, I'll testify. Let's do it.
The Reeves Cannabis Cultivation Protection Act moved through committee with bipartisan support, its language rooted in Paul's experience. At the hearing, Paul testified about his grandfather's ledger, the audit, and a community that rebuilt without an HOA.
The law should never be a tool for harassment. This bill ensures it's a shield.
Weeks later, the governor's pen hovered over the bill in the Capitol Rotunda, cameras capturing the moment. Paul stood beside the governor as the law bearing his name was signed, a quiet farmer now etched into the state code.
From a rated greenhouse to a state law. Not bad for a farmer with a notebook.
The fund's first annual report listed 14 families no longer living under HOA threats. One afternoon, Paul drove to a small house where a family had nearly lost everything to an illegal lien. The mother broke into tears when she saw him, clutching a thank you card with both hands.
She doesn't need a speech. She needs to know someone saw her as a person, not a case number.
He took the card and slid it into his wallet, next to his grandfather's black and white photograph. He drove back to the farm as the sun dipped, the greenhouses glowing amber in the evening light.
I never needed headlines. I just needed to keep the promise I made to a ledger.
The farm stood silent under the darkening sky, the only sound a distant irrigation line.
Grandpa, we did it. Not the way you would have, but we did it.
And somewhere in town, a family was sleeping in a home they'd been told was no longer theirs. Sunrise broke clean over the 10-acre farm, the first light catching the greenhouse glass. Paul stepped onto the porch with a cup of coffee.
Grandpa always said the land remembers. I think it remembers kindness, too.
He walked between the greenhouses, the drip lines hissing their quiet rhythm. The soil was damp and dark. In the community center, the brass plaque caught the morning light, and a single mother was signing the last of her loan documents. Justice isn't always a gavel. Sometimes it's a ledger, a license, and a man who refused to quit.
And sometimes it's a grandfather's note, still folded in a wallet, still as true as the day it was written.
The farm stretched under the new sun, protected by law, rooted in legacy. For Paul Reeves, the battle was over. The work would continue. More families would call. More laws would be written. But today was for the harvest. Paul turned toward the greenhouses, coffee still warm in his hand. The drip lines hummed. Somewhere in town, a family was unpacking boxes in a home that was finally theirs. If this story reminded you that justice can grow from a seed, hit subscribe. We'll keep telling the ones that matter.